Hey everyone, Sarah Knapp here. I am the founder of Mappy Hour. We are a group of usually urban dwelling outdoor enthusiasts. During the times of COVID, we've been doing everything online and have had the great pleasure of having people from both cities and mountains and rural areas and so on join. So, welcome everyone. I will also say, I know we have some Boston people here tonight. Would love to see a chapter out there. If you are in Boston and interested in being part of the hunt for our next Mappy Hour chapter leader, I will drop a link in the chat right now where you can find out more information. Before we get to our panel, a few more notes. One about the chat. Just be nice to each other. Feel free to introduce yourselves, ask questions. I will be in there as your moderator, but yeah, just don't say anything that is intolerant, unkind, anything like that. I will be moderating. So that is the only big announcement, and we do have a raffle, which Tyler will be telling everyone a little bit more about when he hops on. And the final thing I wanted to say was thank you to Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. They sponsor Mappy Hour and make sure we get to do cool stuff like this webinar, and we love them. So thanks, guys. And with that, I'm so excited to introduce Tyler. He is the founder of the Granite Backcountry Alliance, skier, obviously, and our moderator for tonight.
Greetings, everyone, and thank you, Sarah, and thank you to Mappy Hour and Sierra Nevada for allowing us to host this evening. Tonight we have an exciting show about spring skiing in Tuckerman Ravine, and you know what it really means to me is when that maple sap is running from the trees and those fiddleheads are sprouting next to the streams. It's time for some wild corn to flourish, and so that's what we're going to talk about tonight: is getting on the big hill, spraying some snow, and having a good time with your friends. So it's an exciting time right around the corner. It's come maybe a little sooner than we anticipated, but guess what? That's okay. You got to deal with it as it comes. So tonight, before I introduce our esteemed guests, I'm going to I want to let everyone know, reiterate what Sarah had said, that we will be offering 2 tickets to Wild Corn, which is our unique signature event that's happening this year on April 3rd. And it is a celebration of what we're talking about tonight. It's the ski season, the backcountry community. There's music, demos, ski-mo race, a lot of exciting things. So we'll give those away at the end of the show. I also want to encourage everyone to offer some Q&A. I know there's a lot of unknowns about heading into places like Tuckerman Ravine. It's possibly a bucket list item for some, but that's what we're here talking about tonight. There's a little bit more than meets the eye as we travel up to the high alpine in spring conditions. And that's something that we want to talk about, is that this is a time when the steeper, aggressive lines really come into play, and there's a question about what are the prezzies, what is the playground, and to that point, it's not always peaches and cream, right? It looks good in pictures and whatnot, but there's a lot more that is part of the knowledge base, and we want to know and help you understand, what's in your backpack, what's your winter travel, what's your spring skiing travel planning, and how are you going about things. So tonight's a great opportunity to learn a little bit about something that may be unknowns, and you may have additional questions. So we want to entertain everything tonight. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is introduce our panel. So first off, and I tried to bring in the band for the introductory music here, but we'll go without for right now. So first, I want to introduce Blake Keogh. He's a GBA Grand Ambassador, and Blake is a mountain guide from Sinnet Mountain Guides, and we're excited to have you, Blake. Hilary McCloy. Hilary, the former U.S. ski team member and owner of Hilary McCloy Physical Therapy and Performance Coaching. Howdy, Hilary. And Andrew Drummond, Mountaineer, ski Mountaineer, and owner of Ski La Whites, a retail and rental shop in Jackson, New Hampshire. Welcome, Andrew. So what I want to do first is just give these folks an opportunity to introduce themselves. Blake, why don't you start?
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I work for City Mountain Guides over in North Conway, right near Andrew and Hilary. Spend the vast majority of my season on the rock pile or Mount Washington. Yeah, wonderful place to ski. Most of the time spent teaching area courses or avalanche education. Increasingly, it's been great to see the numbers of private guiding, people just wanting to get to know different places of the White Mountains a little more. That started to increase, which has been a nice trend. Yeah, and when I'm not on the mountain, over here in South Portland in Maine, and creating projects around the house that I oftentimes don't finish.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. Another GVA Grand Ambassador is Hilary. Hilary, let's learn a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Tyler, and thanks for everyone coming out for Mappy Hour. I live in Jackson, New Hampshire, and by day I'm a physical therapist working often with runners and skiers, but really anyone that's curious about learning more about how their body works and how to move better. And then in my free time, I ski up as much as I can when it's safe and the weather's good up on Mount Washington and around the Whites. I learned how to ski Nordic ski this winter, so that was fun, kind of a new sport. And I hang out a lot at Ski the Whites with Andrew. And, we go out and get into trouble. Well, not like trouble, but we go
it's okay.
Ski and have fun.
It's good. You need a partner in crime.
Right.
Andrew, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And also big thank you to Sierra Nevada for supporting fun projects like this. My name's Andrew Drummond. I am from Conway, New Hampshire, which is just about 20 minutes south of Mount Washington, Tuckerman Ravine. I grew up skiing in the Mount Washington Valley, alpine racing, and really cut my teeth here at Tuckerman Ravine for backcountry skiing. I started a backcountry Pacific ski shop in 2016 and just been watching the growth of this category. It's been a lot of fun, and the whole goal of starting the ski shop was to introduce people to modern backcountry gear, and that's been a lot of fun to watch the community grow, to be part of it through what Tyler started with Granite Backcountry Alliance, which we'll get into later, but also just watching this type of skiing change people's lives, where you might have grown up alpine skiing or Nordic skiing or just an avid hiker, and now you get on some lightweight gear and you're able to get the best of both worlds. You're able to hike up and ski down effortlessly. So that's been really like what makes me tick, is watching other people sharing this passion with other people. And so I try to obviously ski as much as possible. The shop life takes over at times. Winners go, and yeah, but it's fun. It's fun to be here.
Well, this is great, and it's great to have everyone here. So let's just dive right in. What do you say? So Hilary, I'm going to start off with you. This is corn season is right in front of us. Basically, came a little sooner than we anticipated. But I want to start talking about the touring season before we actually get on the mountain. Right, like we ramp up. Whether we're going alpine or in the trees, the tour really starts at home. Your practice, we mentioned physical therapy and performance coaching. So what I want to talk about is, what a common question that people think about, say they're going to Tuckerman Ravine, for example, what kind of fitness is required to get into the mountains and get into the backcountry, whether you're renting a setup or you have your own setup. If you're going couch to the bowl, let's call it, right? Talk to me about that and what fitness is required.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a long hike to get up to the bowl from Pinkham Notch, where you start, up to Hermit Lake, which is where you start to see everything. It's about 1,800 feet of climbing and 2.5 miles. And depending on your equipment, you're either going to be skinning, and depending on the time of the spring, we skin as long as we can until we have to start hiking. But it's essentially a big hike. Whether you're skinning or hiking, you want to work on any of your hiking muscles, basically. So if you're in the city or not up and around mountains, then, climbing stairs are great. Doing any kind of like step up, back, posterior chain exercises are really good. But really, it's just a matter of taking a little bit of time to get your gear set up, because you have to hike to the bowl, which is another 500 feet of elevation and another half mile from Hermit Lake. And so that's just to get there, and that's going to take maybe up to 2 hours or more to get up there. So you're already sort of tired by the time you get there. So making sure if you are carrying everything on your back, that it's balanced well, that it's more fatiguing than you realize to carry your ski boots, your skis, your poles, hopefully your helmet, lots of water. I know one thing that I think people underestimate when they're skiing, they think it's like, it's going to be cool, but it gets really warm up in the bowl. Like when there's not a lot of wind, it's sunny, that sun's reflecting off the snow, people get really dehydrated. So bring lots of water. That's a pro tip, I think, that people don't do. Sometimes we'll refill our water if the water starts to break up in the bottom of the bowl. It's a good water source. Just don't fall in. And also sunscreen is really important, because once you get to the bowl, then if you're going to ski it, you have to then hike up the gullies or wherever you're going to ski. So it's a long day. Pace yourself. Stay hydrated. Have fun. If there's not snow on the trail, bring sneakers. You want to start out in shoes, because you don't want to hike in your ski boots on the dirt. So I mean, you guys will talk about planning, but other than training for hiking, I think it's the other stuff's going to go a long way. Just being prepared for the little things. Oh, and food, lots of snacks.
So are you in the lot? Are you pulling out your yoga mat and doing stretching in front of the car and all that?
No, because it's a pretty mellow hike to start out. So that's an easy way to warm up. Maybe before you get in your car and drive home.
Yeah. All right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I see we have our first animal in the screen down there with Andrew. We are inundated with animals here tonight, so it's exciting. Some cameos. There's been rumor that Squall may show up, although he's been a little fidgety lately, apparently. But Lucy may pop in with Blake as well. So we'll focus in on Blake here for a second. So Hilary gave a nice description of the fitness elements of getting up into the bowl and having a day under the sun and on the snow. But again, thinking about starting the tour back at home, I know you're prepping for a trip to Katahdin tonight, so this is like a good question for you. What are the things you need to prepare for? Like what's in your backpack? In other words, what are the essential items that are important to have with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll do the standard day, not what my living room looks like right now. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just kind of piggyback off of what Hilary's talking about, like that preparation in advance. That our goal when we get into the backcountry, well, one is to have fun, find good snow, go skiing or riding, however you choose to recreate. But two is that it's a really complex environment. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. So like something like fitness, right? Like it's a really good example of like that can burn a lot of not just physical energy, but mental energy as well, if you're worried about like having to keep up, right? So a lot of the things that we do in advance of a ski day, like making sure that we are in appropriate fitness for whatever our goals are, as well as making sure that we have things at a minimum, like a first aid kit or a repair kit. Repair kits are the other thing that I think often get overlooked. And yet in my experience, maybe it's just me and the way that I use my gear, but I tend to break things a lot. So like knowing how to fix something when you're out in the backcountry and by fix, I don't mean like a permanent fix. Like I just mean fix to get you off the hill and then give it to Andrew. And then he'll actually fix it. But repair kit, first aid kit, a good headlamp, backup batteries, and obviously if you're going an avalanche train, beacon shovel probe, good partners, having taken a level 1. There's a lot that goes into it. An extra layer, I think, as Hilary mentioned, you're going to be in parts of the ravine. You can be in the parking lot and it can feel miserable and it's blowing sideways, and you get to a part of the ravine and you're in the lee and it feels beautiful and sunny and amazing, and everything in between. So having the layers to, again, make sure that you're adequately prepared for whatever the weather presents you. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. That it's a lot. The gear list can get long, and I guess I would add to that too. The more you do it, the more you get dialed in, and so even those small little tours, you find things in your pack that you may not need, and you certainly when you need something and you don't have it as well, right? So it works both ways.
Yeah.
So Andrew, I want to switch over to you. We've seen a lot of newcomers to the sport, and both Hilary and Blake talked about things in their pack and fitness. But what I want to talk to you about is backcountry skiing is very much a different animal than alpine or lift serve skiing. So I want to talk about sort of the mental component, right, of getting into the spring skiing state of mind. So it's another element that's part of this. So give me a little bit about the headspace required for being a backcountry skier.
Yeah, I think that if you look at most people here listening, I'm sure you've got the full spectrum. You've got people watching that have never been to Tuckerman Ravine. You got people with a ton of experience. And the thing that we all have in common is like we love to ski, and that the conditions that you're going to encounter could be better than your local resort. Like if you looked at some of the resorts right now, not so great. But if you go up to Tuckerman Ravine right now, it looks like the wind groomer came down and smoothed it all out. And some days up there, you'll have that predictability, that consistency from top to bottom. Every turn what you're going to get, and that hero snow up there. But then there's other days where, when I think about back to my 12-year-old self trying to make that first turn over the head wall, punching through and not having my body weight right, and then just taking a long sliding fall. It was like you don't know what to encounter, and if you can learn from others and prevent those mistakes moving forward when you get up there, like Blake's saying, it's just you got to be cautious and be in a good headspace where that you might not get to ski the stuff you want to ski. Be prepared to have all the gear so that you can check it out. Like if you're going to avalanche terrain, to have your Avi gear. If you're going to steep, icy terrain like we were in today, to have your sharps and be prepared for that. So it goes to being prepared not to ski the stuff you're going to want to ski. We're often dead set on April, pick a weekend, we're going to go ski, we're going to get the sun, the soft snow. It's going to be it usually is, but often we're finding that you can get midwinter conditions in April and May. You get these spring conditions in January and February. So when you're planning your trips, obviously have your skills, hopefully figure that stuff out as much as possible at your local resort, or just through midwinter travels in some of the GBA glades or the Vermont glades. And it's really easy to preach all this stuff, and it's another thing to practice it. I think that it all comes with some perspective, some mentorship, some guides, and this experience that the longer we do this, the longer we see more stuff happen that we want, that are preventable, some incidents in the backcountry. And I just think being prepared mentally when you go out there for all these different situations is just going to make you way safer in the long run, because you're going to either have an alternative plan. If the conditions aren't good, you can find something else out, but or if the conditions are amazing, being prepared to be up there longer. It works both ways. So it's all about having an open mind when you plan these trips. But
yeah, no doubt about it. Having an open mind, that makes a lot of sense to me. And something else I just want to add in here as we think along these questions is, as we mentioned at the outset, we are going to have a giveaway of some wild corn tickets, two wild corn tickets. So the way we're rolling with that is submitting donations. You could throw in $5 to the ring and maybe win big. So and any contribution counts. Granite Backcountry has been pivotal in expanding the skiable terrain. So we encourage you to participate in that process from home. So, the next question I want to ask, and I'll actually also say, I do want to take some Q&A. So if you have a question, I know there's been some questions posted. If you have a specific person that you want to address that question to, please put that in as well. We'll dive into that arena shortly. But I want to head back to Blake and ask you a question about, from a mountain guide perspective. You see a lot of first timers in the same way Andrew sees them in his rental shop, just in a different role, however you want to say it. So let's talk about some of the, you both referenced some mistakes. Let's talk about what are some of those common mistakes, and what are maybe another way to say that too is what are some practice tips to overcome those mistakes?
Well, one, we'll just thank Andrew for outfitting a lot of the people that we see coming through our courses. So I wanted to reiterate, and I think this can also help answer the question a little bit, what Andrew just said about having multiple plans. I really think in my own experience, at least early backcountry experience is all right, there's the line I want to ski and that's it. And if I were being really honest, I did not have a plan B or C. It was just nope, there it is. I see it. We're going for it. But what really makes for a fun or not so fun day is just having that B, C, and D plan, to revert to, so you can be oh yeah, all right, whatever. This isn't working right now, but plan B is a good one. So let's go check out that line over there or wander over to another ravine. And I think that honestly is something that catches a lot of new backcountry skiers by surprise. They're all right, left gully is going to be in today. We're going to go ski left gully. And then you get there and maybe you forgot crampons or whatever it is, and it's ice. And you're well, wait a minute, what am I going to do now? You just spend a bunch of time and energy getting up there. And so, having multiple plans. I think another one that actually gets lost a little bit, it'd be interesting to actually hear Hilary and Andrew answer this as well, as at least on my end, we spend so much time talking about avalanches, which are something that is very real objective hazard in our terrain. For a lot longer throughout the season than probably most people think. But one of the things that we don't get to practice a lot are just some things as simple as skinning technique, right? And so a lot of the mistakes that I see people make are, they might, follow Hilary's program really well, but then the way they're moving through the backcountry is just burning a ton of energy. And so they do get to their line and all of a sudden it's well, now I'm just spent. So, using things like GBA glades, resorts, whatever the uphill pass is now, to get some of those little fine-tune those techniques so that when you do get into bigger terrain like Tucks, you have to do something like a kick turn. It's not, cat playing with a ball of yarn, which is what I looked like the first few times I'm trying to make a kick turn on steep slopes. I don't know. Other than that, I mean, I would say just from a pure avalanche perspective, Avi Ed, the positive trend is that back in the day, we used to wait until we had a really bad accident and then go get education. And now we've essentially gone 180 degrees the other direction, where people are getting a ton of education and then going out into the backcountry. And that is a wonderful trend to see versus the old way of doing it.
Yeah. I'd love to see some video of those first kick turns of yours.
Double ejected.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Well, that's actually a good point, because I see that quite commonly, folks that start early on, is there's that slippage, right? Going backwards. And that is very common. And that's an easy way to take a tumble. Yeah. For sure. So understand that friction, that balance points, like grabbing standard, right? You got to just understand that balance, use your poles and push yourself forward. So on thinking about videos, makes me think about Andrew and what he's doing with Ski the Whites. And Andrew, you've had this prolific rise in the backcountry since you came back east in 2014, and you just saw all this terrain and just wanted to charge and tackle it. And you captured a lot of videos, so really great content. So in terms of spring skiing, how has spring skiing shaped the way you approach and move around the mountains?
I think that when I think of Tuckerman Ravine, it was really just a spring destination, and that's the way I think a lot of other people tend to think about it, because that's if you look at the culture of backcountry skiing in the White Mountains, it was like the spring. It was that the photos you see of the long ant lines going up into the bowl, just like the party scene. And I was in there too. And that's what I knew. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. I'd go up there and, each spring, whether I was in college or high school, I'd try to get up there. And so that carried on into like 2014-15, winter 2014-15. And I had a blast. And I think that it's an excellent opportunity to get exposure to steep terrain and to do it in relatively safe conditions most of the time. We're going to talk, we talked a lot about unsafe conditions, but you'll see people, like 1 out of every 10 people fall, and most of them are going to be okay. And it's a little bit of the circus that has been going on for years and years and years, way before I started skiing. But it was a really fun opportunity to like test yourself and to see true steep skiing you don't have at the resorts. Like you'll never really replicate long sustained pitches like this anywhere else. And through that, like it was like open my eyes to just like yourself. And it used to just be one run, and my legs were tired. And like the more you practice, the better you get, the better the gear gets. You can do more runs, and then you start thinking, it's like very systematic, and it's really fun to ski some of these lines the first time. And then you like start exploring elsewhere. And then you start looking throughout the White Mountains. And I think that first year that I was moved back here in that spring of 2015, Hilary and I went to the Northern Presidentials and stayed in one of the cabins up there. And that was really eye-opening, because you're like, it's warm enough weather that you can get away pretty comfortably. And you catch these right windows. Like spring's a really opportune time when the snow is going to soften up. Things are a little more predictable. It's like definitely a safer window to explore than the heart of midwinter. You've got longer hours, daylight, and usually the conditions are a little softer. But that's not like a blanket statement for every April and May, but it enabled me to like go and explore and see a lot of these new other ravines and other lines that you can pull up on Google Earth, and not many guidebooks. Goodman's book had references, some of them, but like seeing them in a guidebook is way different than seeing them in person. So as you evolve as a skier and you want to ski more terrain and more lines, it's like springtime is the perfect time to start going out and adventure and see, and like really see what's out there. And so, yeah, I would say like, getting into some of these areas takes a lot of work and obviously planning, but the reward and the payout is like, if you don't like that scene that's at Tuckerman with hundreds of people, then like go somewhere else, like go find your own zone and be prepared. But like, you can do that if you want. So that's what's really neat about the spring, is that like you can have one parking lot overflowed, but if you go somewhere across the mountain range, you're going to find your own little spot, chances are, or maybe there'll just be like a few other people out there. So it's really up to you to pick your own adventure out there.
Yeah, no doubt about it that you can find contrasting zones in the whites. And, I think about my own first experience in Tuckerman, and circus is probably a pretty good word. And, we all kind of chuckle because we know what that is. But the first experience of there, it is just, the terrain is eye-opening. It's unbelievable. It's like, you can't believe that it's in the East Coast. And then there's a point in time typically where you start to move on. You gain your steep ski legs, and it's time to go find some more solitude in the mountains. And that's the best thing about the White Mountains, is that it offers that. And there is the ability to go deep, go long, go far. But again, that goes back to what we initially talked about, and that's knowing your fitness, knowing what's in your backpack, understanding how to travel in the mountains. And those are real things. And there's a mileage related to that. So that's just something to consider. Another thing is I just want to give a couple plugs, because at Granite Backcountry, we have a lot of partners, and there's a big surge this year with guidebooks, and Granite Backcountry, we certainly have a guidebook that is about our glade zones. And some of the exit CCC runs, like the Sherby, which is the John Sherburne Trail that comes out of Tuckerman Ravine, and the Gulf of Slides Ski Trail, among others. There's also Kurt Nyler's book, Presidential Skiing, and David Goodman's book, Best Backcountry Skiing in the Northeast. And those are really great educational tools to understand what you're getting yourself into. And you hear right from the horse's mouth. So I just want to give a plug for those. I also just want to give a there's a Q&A here. I've got a bunch here lined up, so I better jump in on them before I'm overloaded. But one of them is, it's a good question, because it's not even about being on the mountain. It's from Jason. Can you talk about a good place to stay in North Conway area? I usually stay at the Royalty Inn in Gorham, but I'm thinking of staying in North Conway the night before I skin up from Pinkham. Joe Dodge Lodge is full on my scheduled trip day. Well, I'll just jump in initially and say, Gorham is a wonderful area to stay. I mean, it is the reverse of Jackson. It's another gateway to the White Mountains, so don't overlook it. We have a strong partner with Hub North, and they have really unique accommodations, and I would encourage you to check them out. hubnorthnh.com, I believe, is their website, and they're great people, and they can impart some knowledge as well. And North Conway, honestly, a lot of people stay there. It's a busy place, but it's a Google search away. There's really a load of places. So it's hard to really pick anyone in between or one over the other. And I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that, but it's a great question. Barnesfield, you could do some camping. That's around Pinkham now. So if you guys have any other plugs that you want to put in for businesses that have helped you out along the way, and if not, we can continue on.
No, Tyler, I'll give a plug for the might be a little more on the rugged side, but the Harvard Cabin. Mm-hmm. When I first moved back, I spent a lot of time in that place, and it is a fun experience. So obviously in non-pandemic times, but yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And certainly there's lean-tos up in Hermit Lake, and those are, as the gear has gotten lighter, faster, and better, less and less people use those, to the point where there's some proposals to remove them. But so I would certainly encourage people to, if you're going on a big Katahdin trip, Chick-Chucks or out west or whatever, and doing some winter camping, that's just a great place to get your feet wet, so to speak. Not literally, of course, but all right. So let's move on and go back to Hilary. Along with many newcomers that we've been talking about to the sport, again, skiers, but due to backcountry skiing, we've really seen this great surge in female skiers, which is awesome. Right? There's really been this rise, and it's something that I love seeing, and I love having you here to talk about it, because you really give voice to that movement. And what I want to ask you is, like, what advice do you give females as they're considering trip into, say, Tuckerman Ravine? Is there anything that's different, or anything that are we the three dudes over here talking about maybe bro stuff? I don't know. Give me some more info.
No, I think that's a good question. There's definitely, I think, an intimidation factor when people talk about tucks and all the social media that comes out of tucks, especially in the winter. It's either people hucking the ice cliff, the ice bulges, or people tomahawking down. And then, it is kind of overwhelming. And I have a lot of friends that live around here, or that I've met just from living up here, that often want to go up to Tuckerman Ravine, but aren't sure. And so I always say, the spring is probably the safest time to go up there, like you guys are saying, and Andrew, to kind of learn and get your feet wet, so to speak, because the conditions are a little bit more forgiving. They're a little softer. It's a little bit easier to boot pack up. Transitioning in steep terrain is something that people don't really know that maybe, I didn't think about it the first time I had to transition in something really steep, and all of a sudden you have to figure it out. So I would recommend finding, a friend, and having a discussion before you go of, what are again, anytime, even with avalanche training, what are your expectations? I know, it's easy to get up there and kind of get sucked along up into terrain you're maybe not comfortable in, but and then I think that it's also a tough issue. So a lot of people say, well, I don't know any other women who go, or I don't really know who to go with. And, I think that is it's a tough place to meet people. I personally, I guess this is a plug for myself. My friend and I run this, a backcountry skiing and yoga retreat usually in the winter, and it's just for women. And the community and the network of friends that have come out of that, and then people that I've met that are friends of friends, it's actually become a pretty big group of people. And so just within those groups, I've watched them go on their own, or at least they have other people that they can start talking to. There's also Backcountry Babes. It's a operation out from out west, but they have an East Coast contingent. And so there are different, you kind of have to look for them, but there are groups of women getting together, like, you know, in Backcountry Bliss, what I do is we just talk about how to skin, you know, touring. We learn kick turns, but, you know, on the Gulf of Slide Trail, not halfway up Tux, you know, in a safer place. And, but yeah, I think find friends that are like willing and want to go have a fun day, but, you know, not push you too hard. I don't know why, but I think the biggest hurdle is like being intimidated. And then the beauty of Tuckerman's in the spring is you can hike up as far as you want. You know, you're going to have to put your skis on and ski back down. So you can, you know, you have control of what you're skiing. You know, you're seeing what you're skiing, you know exactly where you're going to come down. And so I always tell friends, like, just, you know, pick a spot, hike up to it, we'll transition, ski down. Great. If you feel good, go a little further. And then start there and then keep going. But I think find some friends or find some people that you are comfortable with, who will help you out. And springtime in Tux is a place to go learn how to do all those things. And we have even talked about equipment, but like crampons, I think are really important in the spring up there. That's one thing I've become they're my best friend, even when it's soft, because things are coming down at you sometimes from all different, when you're booting up those boot packs, sometimes things start falling down. And if you've got crampons on, you can skirt out of the way pretty easily. So I always tell my friends, crampons.
Yep, that's great advice.
That's for guys and girls.
I love your comment about, you know, meeting people, and I just wanted to add, because I see this all the time at Granite Backcountry, you know, we're ever expanding these glade zones, and we have these fall work days, and
yeah, it's a great,
you know, yeah, and community is such a big part of what we're doing in different ways, and you know, we're creating this engagement with the land that folks have, whether you have a loppers or a pole saw. You know, you might be like, well, you know, that's not my thing, right? But you get out there, and all of a sudden, you're with a group of 6 or 8. It's like being a, you know, freshman in college again on that dorm room, where you're meeting people that you may never would have otherwise have met, and next thing you know, you strike up a conversation. You already have a common bond, which is skiing, and that's a great way to meet people. And there's always beers afterwards. So I could encourage folks, male, female alike, you know, whatever you are, and come out and try it out in the fall, and that's a really good time. The other thing, and this is my plug here, because we have like 10 minutes before we got the donations end, but Wild Corn, come into these events, right? I mean, it's that's why we do these events. They're community builders. They're really fun. You get to meet a lot of people, even whether you're wearing a mask or, you know, in non-pandemic times. Regardless, there's ways to communicate, be a human, right? We don't have to always be behind a screen and on Zoom anymore. You could still do things safely, be outside. So, you know, Wild Corn's a great event for that. Whether you're meeting your retailer there, you're meeting a rep from a brand, you're meeting someone who, hey, lives down the street from you, who didn't know that. It's cool. It's exciting. It's a whole, I don't want to call it a subculture, because that sounds a little weird, but it's, you know, it's this really cool group of like-minded people. So, so then the plug is, you know, of course we're giving away 2 Wild Corn tickets. So if you feel up for that challenge, we'd love to see you participate in a donation to Granite Backcountry as we move along and expand terrain in Maine and New Hampshire. So a donation will make you eligible for that. We'll pull that in shortly. So I'm going to go back to another question, and you know, this is sort of open. One of you guys can answer this. So from Lisa, conditions aren't always soft in the spring. Can the headwall be skied safely when it's not soft? Who wants to take that on? I think there's an answer there.
Can it be skied or skied safely?
It depends.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. And, you know, what's not asked is maybe where the answer is. What does the sun do? What if you wait a little bit? What if it's there's no possibility someone want to go down that road. How does corn? Let's talk about how corn can be harvested. What are the elements to make it happen? Maybe that's where we can go with that question. Blake.
All right. Well, I'll add the caveat that I usually probably start too early. I get really nervous, but like a good nervous and excited. And I could probably let the alarm go a little later. But the key to good corn is getting an early start. You really don't want to be there at the end of the day when it goes to complete mush. Having those crampons and ice tools, like Hilary said, for the start of the day, and then, giving yourself a little time to let things soften up. Took a great nap on the top of Mount Adams once for about an hour and a half, waiting for that to soften up. But I'd rather have that extra time. I think, again, as Andrew mentioned earlier, just having, all of a sudden your day gets really good. So you've got extra gear, extra calories to make the most of it. Having a little extra time in the beginning of the day to start making those turns right when the corn gets good.
Yeah. Let's follow this thought for a minute. So Andrew, let's talk more about corn. It's who doesn't like talking about a little corn? I mean, part of me wants to ask you what's better, corn or powder, right? But we can hold that for a second. So talk to me about timing. Blake mentioned his alarm clock, and on a work day, he's hitting snooze about 25 times. But on a ski day, boom, he's popped up. He's already got coffee made. He's out the door. Talk to me about your timing.
Yeah, corn versus powder. We love what we have. So if we got corn, it's great. If we got powder,
Are you running for office?
Yeah. No, I didn't realize. It wasn't until 2012 that I even knew that corn was a real thing. And I was in Alaska in the Denali range, in the Alaska range with my brother, and we were exiting this glacier on this crazy rolling terrain, and he was selling me on this corn this entire trip, and we were there in May, and sure enough, we come rolling over, and the right time of day, these little kernels pop up on the snow. They're just so forgiving and so fun. It's it is hero snow, and I get it. That sold me on corn, and then I've been hunting it down ever since in the White Mountains. And so as far as timing goes, it's tricky because you're trying to plan your day the best day. So say you've got a couple days to choose from that you're going to go up. You're what temperature are you going to pick? What does it have to hit? What's the temperature going to be in Jackson down here in the valley where I am at the shop versus what's the summit temp going to be? And what if you look at the auto road profile temps, what do those have to hit? And there's a lot of elements that go into what is the wind doing and what did it do the night before? So trying to find the best conditions when that snow goes through this freeze thaw cycle is something that Tyler's the expert at. I mean, I feel like you have this down to a science, probably being a corn hunter yourself, but it's one of those things that you learn the more you go out and you look at the temps and the conditions you went out at and the timing of it all, and you hope to replicate that when you find the good skiing. And that can be said with learning the different aspects and what the storms did the week before and what were the winds doing. It all applies. It's all the same. It's how much of a weather nerd do you want to be and keep track of some of this data so that next time you go out, you'll know where the good snow is. And that's what it's all about. It's all about finding the good skiing. And for the spring, a lot of that's going to be the corn skiing. Because if it gets too, some people are no, I just want the warm, the really hot days. I want, bring it swimsuit weather. That's not going to be that great. That's going to be that manky, wet, slop snow that's going to have its own hazards. So there is this delicate analysis that you really need to figure out for the timing to find the right snow. But give yourself enough time, you'll find it. So it's better to leave some time on the table than to cut yourself short.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I'm not sure it's going to be a Granite Backcountry or Ski the White's hat that's certified corn hunter. There's a lid there that could just go bananas. Just
wow,
go right off the shelves. So we'll have to fight over that one. So to that point, you mentioned a couple of resources, but Hilary, let's just talk about Here's a question from Dean. What's the best source for current conditions, especially the skiability of the Sharky? Oh, excuse me, the Sherby. I don't know.
Sure.
Sorry, it's already the Sharky right now. But anyway, go ahead, Hilary. What do you see, or what do you have for thoughts?
I mean, to know what's going on there, you just have to start asking around. I know when I'm curious, you start hearing what people are saying, although it's very, it's all relative, I'm learning, on people's like descriptions of how good the Sherby is. People will say it's all time, and you'll go up there and it'll be more rocks than I've ever seen in my life. But just know that in the spring, it's towards the bottom, it's lower elevations. So you're gonna start, the further down you go, you have to be more careful of more sharks popping up. But really, the way I learn about that is I ask friends. If I know someone skied it, I'll ask them. Often you can see that if you're on Strava. I'll be like, oh, so-and-so skied it, and I'll ask how it was. But there isn't really any daily Sherby report that I know of.
What about, how about you mention instead of perhaps the
Sherby
condition? Yeah. Again, let's stick to the Sherby for a second, because there's an important point here. The Sherby, there's no snow guns on the Sherb. There's, this thing burns out pretty fast, and so you're headed up for a day,
mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden you're like, you get up there, you're like, what? I gotta.
And your legs are really tired at that point, and you're gonna get like moguls, ice, because it's windy, so it blows off the snow. You're gonna be ready for any condition, and then it might stop, the firm stop like halfway down, and then you have to hike out. So
yeah. All right, so we may have touched on this a little bit, but I just want to come back to Blake, and a question that we have is with so many folks clamoring for turns, yes, they're all going to Tuckerman, but there's other places to go. How do you manage to, and we're asking you to give up a little bit of your secret sauce here. How do you manage to beat the crowds and stay in front of it? What are some of your strategies?
I turn into the weather nerd that Andrew was just talking about. An obsessive refreshing of multiple weather forecasts. I really mean that. I mean, so much of what we can or can't do is really depends on the wind. I mean, this is what we were talking about before we even got started, right? I was asking Andrew how his ski day was, and Hilary how their ski day was. Like, so much of that is just gonna be, where did the snow blow in? And you just have to constantly update that mental model of what the snowpack looks like, and so that when you do have a day to go, you can get out there and go explore and wander around a little bit. I think one of the things that's also really helpful, I actually saw a question over here from Gibbsy, is having a good crew. I mean, like none of this is done in isolation. So, the text threads, miles long of people sharing information and, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Or maybe we should go there. And so by the time you take all that information and put it together, you usually have a pretty good shot at going out and having some fun. But that requires, good partners that you trust, and that just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we're getting lower on time, so now's the last chance for throwing some donations into the ring. So please feel free to go ahead and do that. And so we can talk about corn all day. So guess what? You know what? We're going to shift gears for a minute into wild corn, the Shindig, which is Granite Backcountry's signature event, springtime festival. And let's go over to Andrew. What is your take on wild corn? What makes you excited about it? And feel free to talk about the schemo race that you run, and what outfits you will wear.
Well, I just want to say that I've attended every wild corn to date, which is what,
perfect record? Would your school teachers agree that you had that? This is like Blake, hitting hitting snooze on a work day. I love this perfect attendance. I like that.
Thanks. Well, and one reason is because we've hosted the Skimo race, the Wild Corn Skimo event, and it's been a spectator favorite. The Showtime booter, the big air guys in funny suits, you're always plugging the costumes, and so it's like, if you don't have a costume, why even show up, right? Like,
and what were you last year?
2 years ago.
No.
2 years ago, the astronaut suit. And no, it's an incredible social event that, again, we always talk about community and ski touring partners, and like the two, like to find people to go touring with. It's like, if you go to an event like this, you've narrowed it down, pretty sharply. So chances of finding another touring partner, just meeting another friend in general, I've seen a lot of relationships grow out of these events, and that's pretty special. It's hard, and a sport that was so fragmented and so isolated, and everyone has their secret stash and only skis with certain people, it opens the doors quite a bit. So one, to meet people, but two, an opportunity to see all the vendors there. That's huge. There's lots of fun gear. It's a very gear centric sport. So you can talk to the reps and see the gear. You can demo gear. There's going to be a lot of different brands there, a lot of opportunity to hop on new gear, which is always what I built my shop on, is just the exposure and the ability to get on the modern, what's the latest and greatest gear, so that when you're making your next purchase decision, it's not just something you just flex to ski in a shop or try to boot on. You went out there and you know exactly how it fits your foot and how it's going to perform. And then of course the Skimo event, the main event, and there's band and music and all the giveaways and all that fun stuff too. But no, this event, it's open to all abilities, and it's like a performance in a way. It's a fun opportunity to watch this small subsect of backcountry skiing, which is ski mountaineering racing, and on these tiny little skis in fun costumes, hitting this jump of some magnitude. If we're at King Pine this year, the backcountry booter, if we're at King Pine this year, they always have snow. They're like, their guns are on. They're testing guns in October, I feel like. So that whole mountain is full of man-made snow, which means there's going to be snow, and we'll have to talk to them to get something going. I know that Silas Miller, he's the infamous. He put in his word that he was going to shape the best jump of all time.
Oh,
wow!
So there'll be different degrees. You don't have to hit it, but I think you get a bonus if you go off at least the small one. There'll be a larger one, but. Yeah, no, it's a don't miss event. In a year where we don't have any events, or rarely any, it's like, why not go to this one? And there's usually some ring-a-dinging there going on. Just anyone want to comment on what everyone gets as a spectator or that's there? You got it right in front of you?
So do you have it?
Do I have one?
Well,
this kind of looks like
in my office here. There's a cowbell.
All mine are up at the shop.
Everyone gets a wild corn cowbell that comes, and it's a relic. You can hang it on your Christmas tree. It's a pretty cool thing. So again, going back to meeting people, right? Andrew just kind of nailed it in my mind. It's really a great opportunity. And, everyone always has that issue. These days of mentors and all these things have seem to have gone away to some extent. Oh, geez, there it is. There's the cameo. We knew it would happen at some point. So Blake, let's go to you. Talk to me about wild corn and what's your take on it, and give me a little insight.
Well, wild corn for me is a little bit the opposite end of the spectrum for, I think you all. It is the very end of my work season. And so my decision-making fatigue, my lower back, my energy in general is pretty worn out. And so my favorite part, not to belabor the point, but is literally just showing up and seeing everybody. Like that is truly like just wandering around, and it could be you all, it could be other ski partners, or it could be people that I had in an area course throughout the winter. It's just like I literally just love spending time wandering around and chatting with people, and seeing the awesome costumes and, watching Andrew and Silas do their thing off the jump. And yeah, it's the best. It literally I feel like the season begins with like really heavy, intense Esau at the beginning in the fall. And then like the tail end is wild corn. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Hilary, how about you? I mean, I know you've, I think you've been a past winner of the wild corn schemo race. I think Jess Marion may have challenged you one year. Are you going to go head to head with Jess, or is there room for someone else to come in and snag the top spot? What are your predictions here for this year?
I don't know. I think if my favorite part, and I've only been to one wild corn, which is kind of sad, but my attendance is not great.
All right, delete.
I've often been out of town. I've missed it. But I'll be honest. But
out of town.
But no, I think Jess is always someone that is hard to beat. I think the best way to beat her is to make some sort of like jump. You get extra like time taken off if you hit the big jump, because when I was there last time, surprising how many of those schemo guys would not hit the jump. So I feel like there should be some penalty for not hitting the big jump, or a reward where you get time off if you go off the big jump and do a trick, because that's like my one edge on Jess is that I'll go off the big jump. But she can run uphill faster than I can. So
this is Backcountry's version of talking trash. I like it. I think maybe what we do is we introduce a panel of judges just for the jumping part.
Yes.
The bonus points that
points.
Time or deduct time, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe just get more cowbell, right?
Right.
So, Andrew, who do you have in the lead for the big air competition, and do you think there's room for someone else to come in and take out Silas?
I don't. Silas is pretty difficult to dethrone unless, 2 years ago he broke his skis, so that only made him go out and get his bigger skis to go get
bigger. True.
So, I mean, that's a tough question. We saw a lot of great tricks. I mean, the photo gallery is available online somewhere. People were throwing down, and that's really fun to see, because, I mean, honestly, like, we're not all great aerialists. So, I mean, that's half the entertainment right there, is challenging ourselves and trying to do it in style, whether that just means a costume or actual tricks off the jump. Yeah.
Well, good stuff. So we're winding down the time here. We got 3 minutes left. So I've got a little bit of administrative duties here to take care of. And so first off, I want to thank everyone that participated in the donation raffle, let's call it. We just raised $350. That's pretty awesome. So cheers, everyone. Thank you for that. And so the winner of Wild Corn tickets plus a 3-month Fat Map membership is Tira Hanrahan. So congratulations, Tira. That is awesome. Yeah. So we'll see you at the corn, and we'll follow up with you on that front. And I just want to just do a quick summarize, just a summary of Wild Corn, just so now that we've talked about it, it is this spring festival. I will say right now that it is not going to be at Black Mountain in Jackson, New Hampshire. Unfortunately, they have this thing called heat, and the sun has decimated their snowpack. So unfortunately, we've had to change locations, and we believe the current leader is going to be over in Madison, New Hampshire, and we hope that it's going to be at King Pine Resort, and that's a perfect place for this event to happen. It's got mid-range vertical, which is perfect for demos. It's perfect for building a fun, lively scene. It's spaced out so that everyone can be socially distanced, including the vendors. We're going to have a dozen demos. This is your chance, folks. This doesn't happen very often. You get on a split board, you get on a tele setup, you get on an AT setup. You're going to have it all. We've got Jones, Winterstick, Fisher, Parlor. The list goes on. So head on over to Facebook. We have a Wild Corn Shindig event page and a lot of updates going on there. Music, we'll have Reckless, Farm to Table, Shark Martin, and headliner Jason Spooner Band. And I think that will be played live on 92.5 The River. So, cowbells are going to be going all day long. It's going to be great. We're also going to start the week with a online silent auction. We have several pairs of skis, including DPS, Black Diamond, and all kinds of equipment, apparel, clothing, you name it. Our lead sponsors are Virgin Outdoor, an apparel company startup based out of Lincoln, New Hampshire. Very unique and pretty awesome that they're stepping up to a lead title role. They're also sponsoring the Tuckerman Inferno. And our second lead sponsor is one that you probably all know, is Yeti Coolers. And so we will have an abundance of Yeti product to offer out, probably at a lesser price discounted rate than what you would see in the marketplace. And that's what funds Granite Backcountry and allows us to do what we do. So without further ado, head on over to skireg.com/wildcorn. That's skireg.com/wildcorn. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to Mappy Hour, Sierra Nevada, and of course our panelists here tonight, Blake, Andrew, Hilary. It was a great session. I hope you learned a little bit and hope to see you out in the wild corn. Thanks, folks. Have a great night.